Radio.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Light Sports Ramble. And as you heard, Evan and I have added some music to the show. So, Evan, how'd you like that song, bud?
Fall Out Boy.
Did you like that?
Like it. It's one of my favorite songs out there right now. It's Fall Out Boy's latest song.
Yeah, I like it too. I think it adds a little bit to get us all pumped up. We got a great episode today. I am Troy Otradovic, as always, joined with my co-host, Evan Witallison. Evan, let's talk about the weather. I mean, I tweeted out to everybody that listened to the Ramble yesterday, I had made a comment, and I said I don't think the weather's going to affect the game, and I wanted to clarify just a little bit before we get into today's episode. What I meant by the weather not affecting the game is I don't think the weather's going to affect the game planning. It could affect a slick field. It could affect maybe some turnovers. But I don't think it's going to go into the planning room where they're saying, well, it's going to be 1 degree, so we're not going to pass the ball. It's going to be 1 degree, so we can't do this, we can't do that. I don't think it's going to affect that. Could it make an effect on some of the players? Yes, it could. So I don't want people to think that I don't believe that the cold weather isn't going to play into a fumble. But I'm thinking more on the intrinsic terms of game planning. I don't think the coaches are going to game plan to the weather. Again, I'm an idiot with an opinion. What do you think? Do you think the weather affected how they game planned this?
It all depends on that wind. If it's just cold and the wind's not blowing too bad, then I don't see the weather being a huge factor in the game. But if it's really windy too, then you're going to see a lot more probably ground attack. So that way it will affect the game.
Yeah,
if it's windy. But the one thing it's going to affect is ball security and ball handling. The backs and the receivers are going to have to be very careful with that football and be very cautious if teams are trying to attack the football because that ball is going to be slippery.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I just wanted to voice that because, one of our loyal listeners, Mark, had put it out that he thinks the weather will affect the game. And I told him, I said, in a 30-minute show, we really can't get into what I really completely meant by that. One day, Evan, with the right luck, maybe we'll be doing a 3-4 hour show. But in a 30-minute show, we got to be got to be quick. Got to get to the point. Sometimes we can't clarify every point that we have, but I just wanted to get that out there. It is going to be cold. They're saying this could be colder than the Ice Bowl, and so the weather, it's going to be cold out there. But with that said, with the weather, Evan, give the fans, the Packer fans, an update on the so-called blackout that they said was going to happen, which I knew it never would be blacked out in Green Bay. People always come to the rescue. So give the fans an update on the NFL blackout that has been lifted.
Well, if it would have ended up coming out to a blackout, it wouldn't just been in Green Bay. It would have been Green Bay, Milwaukee, and Wausau, 3 of the larger markets in the state. But fortunately, the game is sold out. Associated Bank, as well as the Fox affiliates in Green Bay and Milwaukee, stepped up to the plate. And I guess there is a little less than 1,000 tickets left this morning. And they stepped up to the plate and purchased the remaining tickets, and the game will be a sellout. Because from what I had seen on Twitter, Associated Bank's tickets are gone, and I'm not sure about Fox 6, Milwaukee Fox affiliate, or Green Bay's. And if you are at the game and you're listening to us right now, or you're going to listen to us before the game, it's free hot chocolate and free coffee at Lambeau Field on Sunday.
No adult beverages? No free adult beverages?
No adult beverages, just hot chocolate and coffee.
Well, I'm sure people want to put some Baileys or something in that hot chocolate. But
they're going to have to find a way to smoke in themselves with all those layers.
Yeah, well,
I'm not condoning it now, so don't tell them Evan said so.
Yeah, exactly. We are not condoning the consumption of adult beverages, just saying that I think a Baileys and hot chocolate sounds pretty good, even right now. Even right now, as we're doing the show, that sounds really good, as it's pretty mild out here, but we had some snow, and it is still cold. It's January. We got to expect the cold. But
here's what they're calling for, though, just so you get aware of what they're calling for, at the game, and our listeners, so they can understand that they better make sure they dress in layers. It's kickoff temperature might be around 1 or 0 degrees. By the end of the game, they're talking about 15 below zero, and they're talking a wind chill on Sunday of potentially negative 55 degrees. So that's what they're talking about when they're talking about cold. It's cold, it's January, but this is extreme cold that if fans don't dress right and don't dress appropriately, they can have some serious medical issues by the end of the game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for the safety of our listeners, for the safety of our fans, invest in the hand warmers, invest in feet warmers, long underwear, layers, keep your hands and ears warm. Going back to my days of when I was in college, when I had my classes, is keep the ears warm, keep the fingers and toes warm. It'll keep the rest of your body warm. So make sure that you
wear mittens if you have them, not gloves. Wear mittens.
Yeah, mittens give you more free reign. So look at that. We're becoming now helpful hosts as we tell the fans how to dress. So we can add another notch on our resume. We don't just talk about sports. We're talking about health. So, unfortunately, though,
mittens doesn't just give you more free range. It's also forcing the fingers together so the heat stays in one spot.
Yeah. Well, like we talked about, keep the head warm, keep the toes warm, keep the fingers warm. It's going to keep the rest of your body warm, except for those crazy people. And there's going to be one, Evan, that I totally look at. And
unfortunately.
And you know what? I live in a different part of the world, so what happens is, a different part of the country, but they think that because one fan does it, that we're all like that. They're crazy. I'm not going to take my shirt off in 1-degree weather, but there's going to be some dummy that does it, and I feel bad for him. But with that said, let's get into today's ramble. It's a good one. We're going to preview the 3 NFL playoff games on Wildcard weekend, other than the Packers, which we did yesterday. So those listeners, if you want to listen to the full Packer 49er preview, go to our YouTube channel, check it out. It was yesterday's ramble, Packers 49ers. Evan and I went through the game. We're both in agreement that the Packers have a lot of holes on defense. Therefore, we unfortunately think that the 49ers go to Lambeau Field and they defeat the Green Bay Packers in the wild card round. But let's move on, Evan. 3 games, and you had mentioned a stat to me. Of these 3 games that are being played this weekend, 2 of them are rematches. And so we'll start off.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I want to say 3 of the 4, we already previewed the 49ers Packers, but 3 out of the 4 are rematches.
Yep.
The only one that's not is the Saints and the Eagles.
And so with that said, we'll make that our last one of the day. First game is Colts-Chiefs. The original game, Colts 23, Chiefs 7 at Kansas City. And so let's get right into this game. Kansas City, they had sights on a division title, didn't work out near the end of the year, and they fell to the wild card. They fell into the 5th seed because the Broncos overtook them at the end, which you and I thought on an earlier ramble that this would happen, that the Chiefs would get in as the wild card. But take it away, Evan. Let's preview Chiefs and Colts. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's pretty good matchup. Looking at it, really good on paper. The Chiefs got good news with one of their better defenders, Houston. Justin Houston, he's coming back for this game. He had 11 sacks on the year. Him and Talimba Hali combined for 22 sacks on the year, so that'll be a huge addition for this week. He also had a forced fumble. And looking at the Chiefs, if you look at their offense, and this is how they're going to have to beat the Colts, is the Colts are missing a big play threat at wide receiver without Reggie Wayne in there. But their running back, 1,200 yards rushing. Alex Smith had 3,300 yards passing. Jamal Charles had 600 yards receiving. Dwayne Bowe, 600 yards receiving. Dexter McCluster, 500 yards receiving. Donnie Avery, 500 yards receiving. So, and the names I just mentioned, they all had 40 or more catches. Jamal Charles leading away with 70. Now, looking at this matchup for the Chiefs, they have to be balanced on offense. They have to be balanced. They have to control the football, and Alex Smith has to use the weapons that he has. As you can see, he's got a few to spread the ball out to. Now, I think, the Colts won the first matchup, but this matchup with Houston coming back, because I don't think Houston played the last matchup they had, but with Houston coming back, the defense is going to be ready. The starters got a bit of a rest last week, and I see the Chiefs getting this win. The Colts, they just don't really have a ground game. Their leading rusher is 537 yards rushing. And after T.Y. Hilton, who's got 82 catches for 1,083, next guy up is Kobe Fleener with 52 and 608. And then after that, the guy who's been hurt for a good stretch of the year, Reggie Wayne, with 38 for 503. So they don't have a ton of weapons in the passing game, and the Chiefs have one of the better defenses in the league against the pass. So, like I said, I see the Chiefs getting winning this rematch this time in the Colts house, which the Colts beat the Chiefs in the Chiefs house last time. But the Chiefs have to stay balanced. They have to run the football. They have to use the weapons on offense, and they should win.
Well, I agree with you, Evan. When you look at the stats and you look at the players, and this is the number that stood out to me when I looked at this game today, is Andrew Luck and Alex Smith. We all know that this is a quarterback league. You and I believe, are in agreement that Alex Smith is no more than a game manager, and Andrew Luck is on the cusp of becoming an elite quarterback, correct?
Yep.
But with that said, do you have the stats in front of you for the yardage and touchdown passes that both of these quarterbacks have had this season?
Give me 1 second.
I just want you to take a look at that and tell me the yardage difference and the number of TD passes. This is what
Alex Smith, 308 completions, 508 attempts, 3,300 yards passing, 23 touchdowns. Andrew Luck, 343 for 570, 3,822 yards, and 23 touchdown passes.
Wow. We're talking an elite quarterback for the Colts, and we're talking about a game manager and Alex Smith that are putting up comparable numbers. I'm not putting Alex Smith into an elite category, Evan. I'm not going to do it because he's never going to get there. I think the reason we're seeing Andrew Luck,
he is what he is.
I see the numbers with Andrew Luck coming down because of one key loss during the middle of the season. That was Reggie Wayne. T.Y. Hilton has turned in a great year, over 1,000 yards. But I think the problem in Indy is the running game. They traded for Richardson. Everybody thought, here's the answer, here's the answer, here's the answer. Donald Brown is now taking over the bulk of the carries. That running game for Indianapolis is the problem for Andrew Luck right now, because you and I have talked about this in many episodes. You have to honor play action, right? Well, if you're stuffing the run, the play action doesn't work. And I know last year people argue with me they didn't have a true number one last year either. Well, how far did they go in the playoffs last year? Same thing.
No, they didn't go very far.
That play action is key.
But they also had Reggie Wayne last year.
Exactly. But my key to this game for both teams, who's going to be able to run the ball better? And in my mind, it's the Chiefs. If you look at the stats of the Chiefs, offensively, when you look at these two teams offensively on paper, they are pretty similar. The one discrepancy is rushing, where the Chiefs are averaging 128.5 yards rushing, and the Colts are averaging 108 yards per rushing. And so whoever runs the ball better in this game, in my opinion, is going to win the battle. Alex Smith needs the running game for his talent. Andrew Luck can get by with his talent, but if he had some play action, his numbers would be extremely better. But
Fleener's numbers would be much better too.
Exactly. But I think you brought up a good point. Defensively, the pendulum swings to the Chiefs. And I think the Chiefs go into Indianapolis and they come away with the win. My only concern is the inconsistency the Chiefs have shown over the last few games. But I think Andy Reid, being the veteran coach he is, knows what he has to do offensively, and that's pound the rock to Jamal Charles because defensively, the Colts are giving up 125 yards rushing a game. And so even defensively, though, Evan, the numbers are pretty close. The thing is, total yards per game, when I look at passing, the Chiefs give up 247. I think a lot of that comes when they have the lead. Because earlier in the season they were winning and teams had to pass to catch up a little bit. But at the end, I think overall talent for talent, defensively, I think the Chiefs have more talent. I think it's going to be a close game, a good game, but I think it's going to come down to who runs the ball better. And I think Jamal Charles is going to run a lot better than Brown and Richardson. So we actually agree on that one. So 1 for 1 on agreeing today. And so we'll see if we disagree as we move into game number 2, which is another rematch. And that's the Chargers and the Bengals. Game 1, Bengals 17, Chargers 10. Give me your keys to this game, bud.
Well, I think the big key is, we're talking about cold in Lambeau on Sunday. In Cincinnati, they're calling for 4 to 6 inches of snow, something that San Diego is not too accustomed to seeing. And then with Ryan Matthews and he's questionable with an ankle sprain, between the snow, which is going to be a slippery field as it is. Remember what happened last time? A stud running back was questionable coming into a snow game with a calf injury in Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush tweaked it in pregame warm-ups, ended up missing the game. So I don't know how Ryan Matthews' ankle is going to respond to 4 to 6 inches of snow during the game. And looking at it, the Bengals have the third-ranked defense in the NFL. Their defense bailed them out last week big time. And I expect more of the same. Phillip Rivers quietly had a very solid season, but I just think the Bengals defense is too tough of a matchup, and I think Andy Dalton gets I believe this would be his first playoff victory. So I see the Bengals winning it, getting some help from the snow.
I agree. I'm going to agree with you. So we're 2 for 2. I'm even going to take the snow factor away. I don't care about the snow. I think the snow actually is going to probably play into the Bengals' favor because of that defense. The key to this game, and you're absolutely right, Phillip Rivers, 4,400 yards, 32 touchdowns, and in my mind really didn't have a great receiving core. I mean, Keenan Allen, Eddie Royal, Danny Woodhead, Antonio Gates are his leading receivers. And so I thought he did a lot of that with average to above average receiving core. Ryan Matthews, a solid year at 1,200 yards. But when I look at the Bengals defense, Phillip Rivers, an experienced quarterback, could also be prone to the pressure. And this is one thing the Bengals do is they create pressure and they create turnovers. The one thing yesterday is that you told me as we were talking about being able to create pressure and create the turnover. That's what the Bengals do. Even though they're missing Geno in the middle, they still find a way to pressure the quarterback. Last week,
their DMs are very good.
Oh, they're awesome. I call them awesome. Yesterday we talked about the 49ers having probably the best linebacking core in the NFL. I think this Bengal defensive line is underrated and one of the top. I don't want to call them the best, but I want to call them one of the top because they are awesome. They collapse pockets, but they maintain gap coverage, something the Packers don't do. And what that does, it can confuse the best of quarterbacks. And I'm going to go back to it. You and I both agree Flacco is not an elite quarterback, good quarterback, successful quarterback, won a Super Bowl, but even he was forced into making quick decisions last week. And I don't care how good you are. I don't care if you're Aaron Rodgers. I don't care if you're Tom Brady. If you're pressured and have to get rid of the ball and not progress through your reads, that's going to lead to a bad decision and turnovers. The one thing the Bengals do good, Evan, when they get those opportunities, they capitalize. They intercept it. They wrap up the loose ball. They create turnovers, plus they allow under 100 yards rushing per game. That's why I said throw the snow out.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if there's snow or no snow. I think they stop Matthews. I think they pressure Rivers. I'm with you. San Diego goes to Cincinnati, and this game, in my opinion, I could be again the idiot. I don't think this is as close as some people think. I think the Bengals defense has shown me over the last 3 weeks that they want to be dominant. And they were dominant against the Ravens, and I don't see that changing, especially if they can pin their ears back and put pressure on Phillip Rivers. So 2 for 2, bud. We both agree. Both agreeing on the first 2 games. Brings us to the Saints and the Eagles. And this, on paper, seems to be one of those shootout games with 2 very, very good offensive teams. Take it away, bud. What are the keys to this one?
Well, first comment I will make, as I heard this morning on NFL Network, the New Orleans Saints have never won a road playoff game. I just found that very interesting. I don't know why. It just kind of stood out to me this morning.
I heard that too.
Looking at it, you got 2 very... Heard that too?
Yeah, I heard that too.
You have two very high-powered offenses. The Saints led by Drew Brees, the Panthers led by Nick Foles and LaShawn McCoy. Now, looking at this matchup, the Eagles have been able to hide most of the year. Not a very good defense. The Eagles' defense is 29th in the league, and I believe they're vulnerable to the air. And Drew Brees is one of the best that there is in throwing the football. He had 5,100 yards this year and 39 touchdowns. He also has Jimmy Graham to throw to, which I don't think there's anyone on the Eagles that can cover Jimmy Graham. And then they got Kenny Stills running off the spot, and then they got Marquise Colston. And then you got Darren Sproles. Looking at the matchup, I think the Saints win their first road playoff game in their history. I think they do just enough to slow down the Eagles with a surprisingly good defense. And I think the Saints move on, which would set up the Saints going to, I believe, Seattle next week if they end up winning.
This is unbelievable. And just so the listeners know, Evan and I didn't have a lot of pre-chat time today. We didn't go over who we were picking. A lot of times we know what we're going to say, right, Evan?
Yep.
Not today. We did not choreograph however we go about saying what our picks were. I'm agreeing with you. I heard the stat, my jaw dropped and said, maybe I should reconsider my pick. But when I look and analyze the game, I can't pick against the Saints on the NFL Wildcard weekend. I can't do it, and here's why. This is a defense that even you and I were surprised about. We talked about it in a ramble. We were not sure how this Saints defense was playing so well when we thought they would be the 29th ranked defense. I give all the credit in the world to Ryan. He went in there with a very aggressive style to create turnovers, create pressure, and what have we been talking about for keys to success for every game this weekend and last weekend, Evan?
Create pressure.
Creating pressure. And I see it happening Sunday. I don't care. Again, I don't care about the conditions of the field with the snow and the cold. I think the Saints defense pressures Foles. The reason Foles has not thrown interceptions, he hasn't seen the pressure. I don't think he's seen a front like this in the last couple of weeks. And like you,
I don't think he has either.
I think that this defense is underrated. They're only allowing 19 points a game. They only allow just over 300 yards per game. Passing yards 194. So I don't see Nick Foles going in there and lighting it up for 289 yards like he's been averaging, or the team has averaged, not Nick Foles. But I think what's going to happen is McCoy's going to get his runs. He's going to get some of those yards on his runs. But the thing I noticed about the Saints defense, and you can chime in, I don't know how much you watch the highlights or watch any of the replays or any of that. But as I was flipping all season on my NFL Sunday ticket, and the Saints defense was on, they tightened up inside the red zone. They tightened up when that team crossed the 50 with pressure, forcing quick decisions, making stops. And that's why I'm going with the Saints this weekend, because I don't think the Eagles have faced a defense like this. You know, we look at, they played the Cowboys, they played the Bears. Where are those defenses ranked? I mean, that's why I'm going with the Saints to get that so-called monkey off their back and their road playoff woes. I think they get their first victory in Philadelphia, and that will conclude Wildcard weekend. So with that said, we have, let's go back and pick. We've got the Chiefs going to Indianapolis and winning, and then we have the Bengals winning. So that means our matchup in the AFC is going to be Chiefs-Broncos, third time for the year.
Yep.
Going to have the Bengals-Patriots. On the NFC side, we've got the 49ers winning. So they'll actually go to Carolina. And we have the Saints winning. They will go to Seattle. And so that's how Evan and I wrap it up, folks. Just over 3 minutes, Evan. Enough time to talk about...
Quick headline that I just saw I want to share with our listeners. Jim Schwartz is going to be the new defensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns, and they haven't even hired a head coach yet.
Oh, nice. You know what?
Good old buddy.
For our Saturday show, that can go onto the list of things that I will just rant my opinion about with no fact behind it.
Oh, and quick update for the Packer game Sunday. Both Carlos Rogers and Eric Wright are listed as questionable for the game.
Ooh, that cold could make those injuries feel just a little bit worse come 4:40 on Sunday, or 3:40 on Sunday, wherever you're at. But those injuries, I've had injuries and played in cold, and you try to loosen them up, and you try to ice them, heat them, do whatever you have to before the game. You step in that cold weather, and that injury just hurts that much more. And you get it banged one time. That could be big for the Packers. Still not going to change my opinion yet. I still think the 49ers have enough to beat them. But huge injuries nonetheless.
I agree.
Huge injuries nonetheless. So, let's get in. We have time just to recap real quick. Good news for the Packers this week, Evan. Share the good news.
Yep.
I'll let you share it.
You kind of caught me off guard there. What's the...
Mr. Cutler. Mr. Cutler signing his...
Oh, Jay Cutler signed a 7-year contract with the 49ers. So the Bears decided to sign him really long term, and this is something we could maybe get a little more detail on maybe tomorrow, being that we only have about 1:45 to go. But I just look at the 7-year contract, and I just think it's way too long for a quarterback that's yet to prove that he could be a franchise type
90 seconds.
The closest one the Bears have had in quite some time, but he hasn't proven he could be a franchise quarterback, but you're going to pay him like it.
Yeah, he hasn't proven he can win a division. I mean, his record, the thing, and you and I will definitely talk about this tomorrow on the show, and we're going to save the title of the show until tomorrow, so it'll be a surprise for all you listeners. We do have a special title for Saturday's episode. So you're going to have to tune in tomorrow to listen to that. But I agree with you, Evan.
Seconds.
First thing you need to do is you need to win your division. And with his record against the Packers at 1-9, he hasn't proven he can beat the Packers. And I don't see the Packers not being favored while Rodgers is the quarterback. So you have to get by Green Bay to win the division. And now they're going to pay this guy ample oodles of money. And he hasn't won the division. I think he had. Did he win one division before the Packers? I think he did the 1 year when we were the wild card. But he just the last couple years hasn't proven to me that he's the guy that can win. So, why are you paying the guy? But that can be tomorrow, our rant. That doesn't have to be fact-based. But with that said, Evan, we'll wrap this up for the fans. Hope everybody enjoyed today's
10 seconds.
playoff preview. We'll see you all at the next red light.